Hey, good afternoon, guys. It's John Hominack with New York Metro Weather. Hope you're having a great Saturday so far. Just a long range update here. We're going to go through kind of what is driving the pattern and why we are discussing the potential for cold air to return in the middle and likely through the end of February. Excuse my voice and any potential coughing that comes along with it. I've been battling pretty significant cold here over the last couple of days, so your patience is appreciated. So here's where we are right now. This is the European Ensemble 7-day temperature anomaly forecast in Celsius, and you can see it lines up pretty well with our ideas that we've laid out here for the week ahead. We have the ridging in the west coast, cold air kind of starting to move into the north central plains, but across the east coast, the 7-day anomalies remaining quite warm, especially east of the Mississippi River into the northeast states. And this is because of the Pacific air mass that has flooded the United States. It's been a pattern where a lot of the cold that existed in December and early January has really retreated back up into the Arctic regions without any high latitude blocking or anything really forcing it down into the United States. What we're going to start to see here over the next couple of days is a transition back towards that cold air moving in. You can see the European ensemble as we move towards the first week of February with really big cold numbers here into the north central plains, the central United States, the Ohio Valley, and even parts of the interior northeast with a weak ridge on the west coast. And look at the cold up here in Canada. This is all being dislodged by blocking in the Pacific Ocean that is taking that cold air up from the Arctic, western Canada, northwestern Canada, and dislodging it further south. And then as we move ahead again, the European ensemble then disperses that cold across a lot of the northern third of the United States, even moving southward into parts of the plains, the Arlatex region. The question becomes, though, when you look at these maps, there seems to be some resistance to this cold here, making it further east. And if you were looking at that and thinking that, you would be correct, because there is a resistance to that cold air moving further east. The question is why? Let's take a look at the weather pattern across the whole hemisphere, and we'll answer that exact question. So here's where we are right now, and your eyes are probably immediately drawn to this huge ridge northwest of Alaska. And that would be the correct region to be looking, because this is the dominant global feature right now. It is a very anomalous ridge that's going to develop later this weekend into early next week. And this is the ridge that's going to disrupt the circulations here across the Arctic and take this air and push it down into Western Canada. And that lines up with the maps that we were looking at here for the early part of the first week of February. As we move forward, that ridge then links up with a ridge off of the U.S. west coast, with a ridge building into Alaska and then north of Alaska into the Arctic regions. This is a huge feature, make no doubt about it, because you can see the poleward reach. So when we say poleward, we mean reaching towards the pole, obviously. The ridge base is all the way west of California, and the height field extends north of Alaska. So the circulation of this whole ridge in general is massive, and it's going to really disrupt a lot of Arctic air here from the Arctic Circle and send it back down southward into Canada and the northern third of the United States. That we're very confident in, but when you take a look at the position of the ridge, let's remember that when we have ridges that are over the west coast of the United States here, that's when cold air is dislodged into the U.S., including areas east of the Mississippi. When ridges are further off the coast, similar to the one being modeled here by the GFS and European, and they extend from really the eastern Pacific into Alaska, not along British Columbia and the west coast, that cold air drops southward here into the west part of the western U.S. and northwestern plains, and then is modifying as it comes further east. So these areas east of the Mississippi River, they don't have that direct cold air flow. They don't have the direct cold air source that these areas do here. So that's why forecast models are showing resistance to the very big cold air moving east of the Mississippi, at least for the first week of February. As we move forward and we look towards the second week of February, more towards the middle of the month, look how much further east that ridge has moved now. Now we have a ridge along the west coast of the U.S. into British Columbia. We still have an anomalous ridge here north of Alaska dislodging all kinds of Arctic air. And look at the low-level cold air flow now, track these height fields down into the northern third of the U.S., the northeast, parts of the Ohio Valley, and mid-Atlantic. And that's why our confidence builds in the cold air moving east of the Mississippi River by the February 2nd week, not necessarily the first week, because the difference between a ridge being here and here is quite large. Does this make sense? That's the next thing we have to ask ourselves. And the answer is yes. When we look at the MJO, obviously well aware of what that is, a big tropical forcing indice that we use. And the convection that occurs in the tropical Pacific and the Indian Ocean has a huge influence on what happens to our weather pattern, mainly due to the fact that it influences the Pacific Ocean. So does this make a lot of sense? The answer is yes, because the MJO being in phase 6 and 7 favors a ridge off the western U.S. coast, and an MJO moving towards phase 8, which you can see the models are suggesting is going to happen by the middle part of February, favors a ridge closer to the United States west coast. When we look at MJO composites, the analog years, all amplitude MJO phase 8 in February, look where the ridge is, and then match it up next to the GFS, almost a perfect alignment, and the high latitude blocking starts to appear again, and we see lower than normal heights across the U.S. East Coast. One wild card is we look at the amplitude of the MJO, so keep your eyes right here for a second. If this MJO in phase 8 is a stronger amplitude, so it goes more to the left, it's stronger convection there, the height field pattern becomes even more amplified, and a suggestion of even colder air and lower heights across the eastern United States continues. And you can see that it matches up very well with what the GFS is suggesting here as we move towards the second week of February. So that's our breakdown on how things are going. We are going to obviously be keeping a close eye on the timing of this as we move forward, but hopefully this offers a little context and color into why we expect the pattern to evolve the way that we do. Overall, as we move into the middle part of February, gradually increasing cold risk across the entire United States, and increasing across the Mississippi Valley and the East Coast as we get into February's second week. We'll have more to come. Saturday briefing is on the way shortly, and we'll talk to you guys soon. If we don't hear from you, have a wonderful weekend. Take care.